everyone. Welcome to today's broadcast. My name's Leanne O'Shea and I'm from Leaders Being Leaders. Today we're going to be talking about conflict resolution, and I'm sure we've all experienced that. Conflict is all around us. It is not something that we choose to have or not to have. It just is. Now, it could be something as trivial as leaving the dishes in the sink in the morning or where to spend Christmas lunch. It could be a little bit more complicated in that, is the job or task that you're about to do a part of your job description? Or it could be on a national level. How much forest do we log? Or who's entitled to social security payments? So this broadcast is not about avoiding conflict. We can't do that, it's just not possible. But it's about discovering productive ways of handling conflict. Ways that can make a difference in all areas of your life. Now, before today's broadcast, you should have received a workbook that you can work from during this session, and also some task sheets. So I hope you've got them in front of you. At the end of this broadcast, you will receive a manual. That manual is a lot more detailed information in regards to what we're going to be sharing today on conflict resolution. So I do encourage you to take the time to read through it, understand it fully, either in your own time or with your teammates at work. So whenever two or more people come together, there is a possibility of conflict. And this broadcast provides a process you can use and modify to resolve conflict of any size. So as you can see on your screen, our objectives for this broadcast are that you understand what conflict and conflict resolution mean, understand all phases of the conflict resolution process, understand the 5 main styles of conflict resolution, be able to adapt the process for all types of conflict, be able to break out parts of the process and use those tools to prevent conflict. Be able to use basic communication skills, but more importantly, be able to use anger and stress management techniques. So you'll see in your workbook that you've got some questions and to answer whether or not these statements are true or false. So let's have a look at those statements. Conflict is always negative. Well, I'm sure you all know that this statement is false. Although conflict is often unpleasant, it can be a catalyst for positive change. Number 2, conflict is always violent. Yep, this statement is also false. When managed properly, conflict can be peaceful and productive. Number 3, conflict is inevitable. This statement is definitely true. Conflict occurs whenever 2 or more people interact. In fact, you can even have an inner conflict with yourself. And the last one, anyone can experience conflict. Yep, this is true also. Conflict happens to everyone, so it's really important to be prepared. So what is conflict? Well, the dictionary defines conflict as to come into collision, either a disagreement, be contradictory, at variance, or in opposition and clash. Although we're going to focus on primarily on workplace conflicts in the workplace, the tools that we'll cover will also be able to be adapted to any area of your life. So where can we experience conflict? I'm sure you've had conflict with customers, work colleagues, your manager maybe, within your personal life with family and friends. We can also experience conflict within our sporting team, local shopping centres, even the car park, and also within the school grounds. I'm sure you can add many more to the list of where we experience conflict on a daily basis. So later in the presentation, we're going to look at many styles to solve conflict. As your skills develop, you will address potential conflict earlier and with ease. Yes, it can be scary at first, but as you begin to practice, you'll soon find that these challenging conversations are an opportunity for deeper connections. So when conflict is resolved effectively, it can lead to personal and professional growth. How is that? It increases understanding. Discussion about the problem increases awareness of the situation, and this gives everyone an insight into how to achieve goals without undermining other people. It's increasing group cohesion. Once conflict is resolved effectively, it is possible for team members to develop mutual respect, and it improves self-awareness. Conflict causes people to examine their own goals and values and helps them to become focused and become more effective. If conflict is not handled effectively, the results can be damaging. Conflicting goals can quickly turn into personal dislike, teamwork breaks down, and talent is wasted as people disengage from their work. Now, we see this often in the workplace where people disengage because of the conflict that's happening within the workplace. And it's easy to end up in a vicious downward spiral of negativity and always come from a place of blame. So the first step to understand that people use different styles to resolve conflict. And the second step is to understand the process of conflict resolution. So we're going to have a look at those steps in more detail. First, let's look at the different conflict resolution styles that people use. There are 5 widely accepted styles of resolving conflicts. The first one is collaborating. Then you've got competing, compromising, accommodating, and avoiding. Understanding all 5 styles and knowing when to use them is an important part of successful conflict resolution. So we're going to look at those in more detail now. So the first one, as I shared with you, is collaborating. This is the approach that we will use during this workshop. So with this approach, the parties in conflict work together to develop a win-win solution. This approach promotes assertiveness rather than aggressiveness and passiveness. So on your workbook there, write a statement which describes the collaborative approach. I win, you win. It's a win-win situation, and the win-win approach is about changing the conflict from opponents to partnership. It is a peaceful shift of attitude that alters the whole course of communication. Now you can read more about this in your manual, but let's move on to the next one, which is competing. With a competitive approach, the person in conflict takes a firm stand. They compete with the other party for power, and they typically win, of course, unless they're up against someone else who is competing. This style is often seen as aggressive and can often cause the other people in the conflict to feel injured or stepped on. So again, in your statement in the workbook there, this approach is I win, you lose. Again, competing is I win, you lose. Let's look at the next one, which is compromising. With the compromising approach, each person in the conflict gives up something that contributes towards the conflict resolution. So again, in your workbook there, I win and lose, and you win and lose is the compromising approach. And the next one is accommodating. So the accommodating style is one of the most passive conflict resolution styles. With this style, one of the parties in conflicts gives up what they want so that the other party can have what they want. In general, this style is not very effective, but is appropriate in certain scenarios. So in this statement, it's I lose, you win. And the avoiding approach is the last approach, is to avoid the conflict entirely. People who use this style tend to accept decisions without question, avoid confrontation, and delegate difficult decisions and tasks. This is another passive approach that is typically not effective, but it does sometimes have its uses. So this statement is best described, the accommodating approach, as I lose and you lose. So learn more about these styles in the manual and how you can use them and when they are best to use. Always remember to go into more detail in your manual. Now, the agreement frame, as you can see on your screen here, can be used in any situation to explain your viewpoint in an assertive, non-confrontational way without watering your position down. It is designed to encourage your discussion and information sharing between all parties. Although it can be used in many situations, it's particularly effective in conflict resolution. So always ask questions. The questions encourage discussion, self-evaluation, and open conversation. Now, when we think of assertiveness, what does that mean to you? To me, it's the ability to express your views clearly without being aggressive. I also believe that assertiveness is having the courage to express your point of view without on difficult issues, but in a way which is respectful and honest. And I think it's important to really learn the art of saying no. Are you comfortable with saying no? We are going to be covering this in a lot more detail in a later broadcast, but I think it's also important to mention the ability to manage emotions, awareness of your own emotions and awareness of the emotions of others. Empathy. Do you understand what it means to be empathetic? It's feeling and understanding what another person feels. Seeing things from their perspective helps create a greater understanding. And I'm sure we've all experienced bullying in the workplace and certainly in the school grounds. Well, there is a difference between asserting yourself and exerting power over another. If you're being bullied, then it's even more important to speak up. So we'll be discussing these and other communication skills in a later broadcast, but I did feel that it was important to bring up as we are discussing conflict resolution today. So stress and anger management are also an important to understand techniques that you can use within conflict resolution. There's no doubt about it. Dealing with conflict can be hard on the mind and the body. Being well equipped with some stress and anger management techniques can help you stay calm during the conflict resolution process. Nothing is going to get solved when either or both parties are angry or upset. So concentrate on deep breathing as it's beneficial to your mental and physical effect. Coping thoughts to stay calm. A coping thought could be, I'm going to focus on getting this conflict resolved. Making sure to take breaks as needed. If the person you're in conflict with becomes emotional or stressed, encourage them to take breaks as well. After the conflict is over, talk with it to someone who's appropriate. Talk to a friend, a family member or a work colleague. It's really good to debrief so you can learn how you can improve on conflict resolution. So as you can see here on the slide, I've just given you some tips in stress management. Do you consider how you can improve stress management in your life? Well, here's some tips on what you can do to balance the stress levels on a daily basis. Now, you should have with you 2 handouts in front of you. The first handout is called Listen, and the second handout is React or Respond. These handouts cover 2 of the most important skills for resolving conflict. One of Stephen Covey's 7 habits of highly effective people is seek first to understand, then to be understood. I'll repeat that again. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. A thorough understanding of how to use active listening skills will enable productive conversations and facilitate better understanding. So when you choose to respond rather than to react to a situation, you are choosing to step outside of yourself and consider other options. The open-minded approach will set the foundation for a cooperative resolution process to begin. So we'll be discussing both of these techniques in detail in our presentation on communication at a later date. So understanding the conflict resolution process. Create an effective atmosphere. Neutralise emotions, set ground rules, and set the time and place. Create a mutual understanding. Identify needs for you, them, and us. Focus on individual and shared needs. Find common ground. Build positive energy and goodwill. Strengthen the partnership. Get to the root cause. Examine the root causes. Identify opportunities for forgiveness and identify the benefits of resolution. Generate options. Generate, don't evaluate. Create mutual gain options and mutual options solutions. Dig deeper into the options. And number 6, choose a solution. Create criteria, create a short list, choose a solution, and then build a plan. So create an effective atmosphere. When people are involved in conflict, there is typically a lot of negative energy. Anger, frustration, and disappointment are just a few of the emotions often felt. So it's important to look at how we can reduce the negative energy by creating a positive atmosphere. We can use the negative energy to create a problem-solving source. And once we do this, we have a stronger foundation to begin the conflict resolution process. Before beginning the conflict resolution process, both parties must agree that they want to resolve the conflict. If you don't want to resolve the conflict, you're not going to have much success. So without this crucial step, achieving the win-win solution is nearly impossible. So think of the Chinese yin and yang symbol. Each side of the symbol opposes the balance of the other. So setting ground rules. Ground rules provide a framework to resolve a conflict. Ground rules should be developed and agreed upon by both parties, positive when possible, fair to both parties, enforceable, adjustable, written and posted. And choosing the time and place, it's always important when trying to solve a major team issue. Well, 5 minutes before the end of the shift just isn't going to work. People are going to be focused on going home, not on the problem. So when possible, choose a quiet place to discuss the conflict. Make sure that there's lots of time allowed, minimise any distractions if possible, turn phones off, forward office phones to voicemail, and turn off computers. Choose a location that is neutral. And remove distractions will enable both parties to concentrate on the matter at hand, resolving the conflict. Now, there is a story many years ago that 2 girls were arguing over an orange. They both wanted the orange, but there was only one. And they argued for such a long time. But then they realised that one only wanted the rind to bake a cake and the other one just wanted the juice from the orange. So you can see that if they'd implemented effective communication and if they'd really responded rather than reacting to each other, they would have avoided the conflict and been able to have the orange together. So I think that's a really great story of demonstrating how sometimes we can be in conflict for no reason at all. And if we understand that everyone can have a win-win approach and a win-win solution. So work towards knowing what you want to achieve, positively affirm to ensure you get what you need out of the solution. Next, identify what the person that you're in conflict with wants. Try to frame this positively and explore all avenues to maximise your possibility to mutual gain. So find mutual ground. Mutual ground really is the starting point for solutions. Now there's a lot more detailed information in your manual and I really do encourage you to read through it. So focusing on individual and shared needs. What do you need to do? First of all, you need to find common ground. Is one of the key building blocks for the win-win solution. These positive gestures will build goodwill and help you make the shift from being two people in conflict to being two people working to solve a problem. So have a good attitude, frame things positively, try to keep emotions out of the statement, and if you say, "I see where you're coming from," mean it. So strengthen your partnership. Making the transition from opponents to problem-making teammates is one of the most powerful conflict resolution tools. Examine the root cause. Once the groundwork has been laid, it's important to look at the root causes of the conflict. One way to do this is through simple verbal investigation. This involves continually asking why, to get to the root of the problem. And the last one is forgiveness. And we're going to look at this a little bit more in the slide now. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting that the conflict happened or erasing the emotion that it created. It does mean accepting that the conflict happened, accepting and working through how it made you feel, accepting the consequences that it had, and letting those actions and consequences exist in the past. Once you have a good handle on the conflict, it's time for all parties in conflict to start generating some options for resolution. So in this stage, it's all about quantity, not quality. You want as many options to choose from as possible. So choosing the solution, well, now choose a final solution. Remember, you can often combine multiple options for even greater success. Is it a win-win solution for everyone involved? Evaluate the chosen solution and make sure it is that win-win. So the steps for resolving conflict are the win-win approach. Let's summarise everything that we've discussed today, and one of the ones that came up the most was the win-win approach. How can we solve this as partners rather than opponents? And then number 2, define the issues needed to examine common needs and concerns. Number 3, empathy. Develop communication tools to build rapport. Use listening to clarify understanding. Focus on problems, not personalities. Apply strategies to attack the problem, not the person. Cooperate. Work together as a team and eliminate power struggles. Manage emotions to express fear, anger, hurt, and frustration wisely to effect change. Be willing to disclose personal issues that affect the conflict. What is the positive side? Transform problems into creative opportunities. Develop opinions, design creative solutions together, and negotiate, plan, and apply effective strategies to reach agreement. So I hope you have a better understanding of conflict resolution, and again I do encourage you to go through this workbook or the manual with your teammates or do it in your own time at home. But I do want to share with you some wise words. The first one is from William Channing. Difficulties are meant to rouse, not discourage. The human spirit is to grow strong by conflict. Conflict is the beginning of consciousness. I absolutely agree with that. Conflict is the beginning of consciousness. They may forget what you said, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And this one we wrote at Leaders Being Leaders. Conflict inspires new ideas, teamwork, compassion, and the opportunity to become more effective, emotionally intelligent leaders. So be sure to ask any questions that you have on conflict resolution or any information that you read in the manual. You can email us direct at westlink@rdl.wa.gov.au, and I'm more than happy to assist with a lot more detailed information on any area of conflict resolution. Remember, the best way to learn is to ask questions. The only silly question is the one that you don't ask. So I do have some recommended readings for you. The first one is The Magic of Conflict, which is Thomas Crum. I was very fortunate to see Thomas Crum speak in Canada, and I do encourage you to research him on the internet. An absolutely incredible presenter. He would have to be one of my favourite speakers, and I've seen many, but an absolutely brilliant speaker. The second one is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I know that I've recommended this a few times, but it is a brilliant book and I do encourage you to read it. And the last one is On Becoming a Person by Carl Rogers. Now, of course, make sure you take the time to read through the manual on conflict resolution or any of the manuals on our broadcast that we deliver to you here from Leaders Being Leaders. Also, I just quickly wanted to remind you something else that I've shared in other broadcasts, which is the learning principle 70-20-10. Remember that 10% of your learning comes from listening to broadcasts like this, attending workshops or training, but 20% of your learning comes from talking about what you've learned. So go into the workplace and at the family dinner table, talk about conflict and how it is that you can best manage it. But 70% of your learning comes from putting it into action. So you now have the tools to be a better communicator and to resolve conflicts. So put them into action. And when you constantly put them into action and you are living in a place of self-awareness, you will really notice a big difference in your working environment as well as your home life. So I'm going to be joining you in the next couple of weeks, and our next presentation is going to be on presentation. Your personal and professional presentation supports who you are being, and we talk about how to do this effectively in our next session. So it's great to be here with you all today. I hope you enjoyed this session. Again, don't forget to email us with any questions that you have. I certainly look forward to responding to you all. My name's Leanne O'Shea. I'm from Leaders Being Leaders, and I wish you all a great day.